Dear students, today I will explain fifth stanza of Ode to the West Wind by P.B. Shelley. And before starting this poem, I want to tell you about the poem and the poet. As Ode to the West Wind, which was written in the early part of October 1819 and published in 1820. The ode is one of the finest lyrics in English literature. In this magnificent lyric, the poet describes his own thoughts and feelings that arose in his mind in the dying hours of an autumn day. As he noticed the tempestuous wind sweep over land and sea. And in the last, fifth, and concluding stanza, the poet prays to the west wind to make him fiery and wild, and also spread his thoughts for far and wide in the whole universe. The poet has badly suffered from the agonies of life. So he invokes in these lines to the west wind to regenerate him by giving energy. He compares himself to the autumnal forest and shows similarity between the forest and himself. Just as the woods are shedding their leaves, similarly, the poet himself is losing the years of his life. The evils of life have sapped his youth and spirit. On account of sorrows and sufferings of life, he is worn out. His limbs has exhausted completely. But again, he wants to regain energy just like the west wind. So he requests to the west wind to make him energetic, wild, and impulsive as itself is, and implore to the west wind to make him its lyre and to draw out from his mind the sad music which has been lying latent in him, as it drawn latent music from the leafless trees. The poet tries to convince the west wind that it is possible, you make me energetic. And he says, what does it matter that the leaves of life are falling off? The autumnal forest has too shed its leaves, still the music is there. He wants complete harmony with the impetuosity of the wind. He also requests to the west wind to scatter his thoughts far and wide like the leaves of the tree. And it would be possible by composing poetry so that they get new life. He wishes the west wind to spread his ashes and sparks from the burning fireplace. He also asks the west wind to be his mouthpiece to proclaim all over the world, all over the universe, the messages of hope and love with the clear trumpet, not of a prophecy. The poet is very hopeful. In these lines, it is clear that our poet is very hopeful. And he thinks that if the winter comes, the spring can be far behind. In other words, just as in nature, winter passes away, yielding place to spring, so the old world will go and in its place will come a new world laden with fresh and sweet promises for suffering humanity. The poet wants to say that coming of happiness after sorrow is must, as the winter is replaced by spring. And students, you may write notes also after the explanation, as it is the ode of all odes, poem of all poems, and hope of all hopes. And second, in this ode we find a strange fusion, you know, a mishran, fusion of pessimism and optimism. It is also a song dealing with the regeneration of mankind. If winter comes, can spring be far behind? Thanks.